Big card coming up today. Really looking forward to it. Our last card from Fight Island before the fights go back over to Vegas. And before we get started, just wanted to let you know the Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Ringside Beer. Head on over to their website. It's ringsidebeerstore.com. Use the promo code FNP. And as a Fight Night Picks fan and as a fight fan in general, you're going to save 25% off your order. I normally wear an awesome t-shirt. You got to wash your shirts every now and again. They've got great tap handles. I got the MMA glove handle. I got the boxing glove handles. They're big fight fans. They want you to get into the ring with Ringside Beer. So head on over to their website. You're helping us. You're helping them. Ringsidebeerstore.com. Promo code FNP. You're going to save 25% off your order. And we have a new sponsor on board this weekend. So make sure you check them out. Here we go. Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick onto any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minka Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clellan Farrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
It's time
for 15 minutes of non-stop MMA, tackling the biggest news in the sport. Head into the chat and let us know how you feel. Live from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here's your host, Craig Allen.
Ooh boy, and I'm really looking forward to this card. As always, your host, Question Mark Kicks, Craig Allen. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP, and I'm really looking forward to a great card. We have 15 fights coming up. Appreciate everybody that's in the chat so far. Trent Bossingham, Artie Van Housen, It Could Happen 21, SAPT. You were here for yesterday's Bellator live show, and JT MMA. As always, appreciate everybody, including Trovelin, who I'm sure is still here and kicking off the early festivities. So, like I said, I need the Vertiball. I got to hold up that Fight Night Picks prediction trophy. Way ahead of Matt so far. 152 and 80 so far on the year. And a couple of interesting things on this card. So, listen, you've watched some of our prediction videos. Maybe you've watched all 15 of them for this card. There's going to be a couple of differences in this one. I'm going to go move some of my picks around. So you're going to want to pay attention. We're going to go through every single fight by fight, like we do in those early videos that we put out. But yeah, the weigh-ins definitely, really setting the tone yesterday. So let's go back into the chat really quick. It's going to be coming quick as it already has started to. So if you want to hit up the super chat, help out the channel. It also gives me an opportunity to see your comment a little bit easier. So hop back into it. H Ministry saying, do I think Boser's going to get the W? Of course I am. Brogans, yo. PG Vision, yo. Trevor Byers, your favorite UFC channel. Matt's in the chat. Dan's here. Henry Kittle here. Let's hear a few locks of the night. We'll get into it. Trovelin, of course. There you are. You're super excited. Edging towards a till decision. That'd be. Matt saying, wait, some people don't watch all 15. Maybe that's Matt Allen, because you should. Alex L saying Till looks fat at 185. I don't think so. Easy now. Evan saying I'm relatively new to watching MMA and your channel helps me learn. Listen, I appreciate that, Evan. So let's get into it. Fish Please saying where's that massager? Maybe I keep it in a special spot, but I'll bring it out next time. It's actually out in the kitchen. I'm not going to go run and grab it. So let's get into this entire card. Of course, you can see that Whittaker until the placeholder. We're going to start with the prelims. We're going to walk through the prelims, and then we'll get all the way up to our main card because some of these odds have changed. There's so many fights to go over, and I know people are going to hop in and you're going to ask about some of the fights that are higher up, or maybe you missed something, and I'll do my best to get into that chat. So Eric's here. Henry's here. Mukhtar's here saying sexy Mexi baby. Well, let's get into it. Trevor Byers asked a really good question. Which fight excites me most? Let's get into that really quick. That's a great question. Which fight would I consider maybe a fight of the night? I think Movsar Evloev and Mike Grundy. That's the one that I'm really looking forward to. I think that's a great one. People are kind of split 50-50 between those guys. I'm going to refer to it, and I brought it up from the start. You can find me on at Craig Allen FNP on Twitter and Instagram. You can find Fight Night Picks on Twitter and Instagram under at Fight Night Picks. And before every event, I put these pictures up, and you can go through and make your picks. So I'm going to refer to those. So if you're not following us, maybe check them out. But yeah, if you look at them, Evloev and Grundy, 53% going Evloev on Instagram, 47% going with Grundy. But yeah, again, in the comments, in the chats, there's a lot of people going for Grundy. Trent Boskam's going Grundy. But if we start here with our first prelim, Nathaniel Wood, John Castaneda, let me know what you're thinking here. GTMMA saying Wood and Castaneda is one of the strangest lines. Wood should be a minus 180 maximum. That's a pretty good point. I actually really, I agree with you to a certain point, because if you look at Nathaniel Wood's last fight against John Dodson, that of course he did lose, it was a weird one because he got caught lunging in. He won the first round, and then as the fight went on, you get John Dodson kind of picking up on things. His hands are still lightning quick. You look at a guy that challenged for the flyweight title not once but twice, and yeah, it didn't go his way against Demetrius Johnson, but he fought really good competition so far with John Dodson that we're talking about. So in this one, Nathaniel Wood, really good at switching things up, great on the ground. John Castaneda, equally well-rounded. The things that I like about John Castaneda, and I talked about it, and Trent saying Till and Grundy, same camp. I have to say this now. I see the comments out there. It's Team Cowbon. I know I said Cowbow once or twice, but yes, that's a good question. Aspinall, Grundy, and Till all coming out of Team Cowbon over there in England. But yeah, in this, everybody seems to be taking Wood. I've seen a lot of Castaneda, so let's break it down. I mean, John Castaneda, former Combate Americas bantamweight champ, had a big win there to get that belt, but it was a while ago. He had a win on Contender Series, didn't get picked up by the UFC, kind of, grueling it out on the regional scene, went 3-2 in his last 5. But it should be a really good fight because with Castaneda, really open karate type stance, stands from the southpaw. And I think, again, if Wood edges in too quick, Castaneda could really catch him. He's not that type of knockout artist. You might not see that out of him, but his striking is quite good. And it should be a really interesting one. I do think Nathaniel Wood's going to win this fight. He is a pretty heavy favorite, over a 3-1 favorite in this fight. But it's a good opportunity for a young guy in Castaneda to get his shot in the UFC. Hopefully it's not just a one-off. Normally you get that 3-fight contract or maybe even 2, depending on how things are going now with the pandemic. I'm not really sure how those contracts work, but it should be a really good one. So looking forward to Nathaniel Wood getting the win here over John Castaneda, but it should be a good fight nonetheless. So Edgar saying, Craig, where's Matt? Matt works on Saturdays, so again, I gotta use that vertiball and keep that trophy nice and hoisted, NHL 94 style. Scott is saying Wood by submission. PG Vision, rear naked by Wood. Alex L saying Wood by submission. And then Trovelin saying the difference here is short notice. UFC debut. That's the other thing, too. John Castaneda coming in on a couple of weeks' notice. Umar Nurmagomedov was actually supposed to be the opponent Nathaniel Wood was going to be taking on. Martial arts fan with Wood. JTMMA with Wood. So we'll move forward to Ramzan Ameev and Nicholas Stutz. This should be an awesome fight. I'm really looking forward to Stutz's debut. I think he can give a lot of people a hard time at 170 pounds. Former K1 kickboxing fighter. He has a great opportunity to throw a lot of combinations. Ramzan Ameev, at certain points, and a good question by Henry Kittle saying, how bad does Wood need the win? He certainly does. Basim Khalaf saying, lock of the night. You are not going to get a lock of the night out of me. No dice, sir. And there's a reason why. I mean, oh boy, I still feel bad about Molly McCann. So that is what it is. Danny D going to be watching with my buddies tonight. Casual fight fan matchup. Again, I think Evloev Grundy, if you're a hardcore fan, that's probably it. L Iron 570. I saw you yesterday in the Bellator show, and I really appreciate you. So thanks for that. That's awesome. Filling up the super chat. Pro Bros saying, when is the fight? The fight start in about 50 minutes. So make sure you check them out there. Scott's taking Stutz by upset. So we'll continue on. If you look at this one, Stutz, really good stand-up, throws nice combinations. He'll throw that low kick in there. He'll push the pace. Ramzan Ameev, though, is one of those guys that you can never count out. I know he lost to Anthony Rocco Martin, and he certainly lost that fight. GTMMA really brings up the best point that you can say. I think Ameev gets enough takedowns to get a decision. Ameev is very limited on the feet, though. Yeah, so he could get exposed by Nicholas Stutz, and there's a reason why. There are a lot of people that are going with Stutz to win this fight. I know over on Tapology, or over on, Fight Night Picks, looking at the Instagram picks, 71% going with Ameev. For Stutz, 29% going with the German fighter making his UFC debut. Again, it should be a good fight. If Stutz can throw together those combinations, really pressure, and keep it on the feet, there's a good chance that he could win. But Ramzan Ameev, you kind of know, it's a known commodity in the UFC. It was a tough loss there. Kieran saying, where can you watch the prelims in the UK? I don't know. I mean, in Canada, you have the early Fight Pass prelims. And it could happen. 21 saying, you forgive me about Meatball. Well, I appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this fight. Ramzan Ameev's over a 4-1 favorite. Maybe it's one that you stay away from. But again, I think it's a good opportunity for Stutz to get a UFC debut. Kind of like in the first fight with Castaneda. It should be a good one. Going with Ramzan Ameev to get the win. So your next fight. This is one of those fights where Matt and I said, don't touch this one. And I get it. Penny Kanzad right now, she's minus 165 favorite if you average it out on best fight odds. Betch Kaheya plus 138. That's a tough one. I mean, that's one that I wouldn't get near because at women's bantamweight, you got to consider it. Penny Kanzad throws really good volume. She's decent off her back foot, but Betch Kaheya pushes a pace, and she does hit half decent, especially for that division. Again, she's taken on the tougher competition so far. She had that fight against Ronda Rousey, albeit a while ago. Artie Van Housen taking Penny. Matthew Knapp, how are you? Sorry you're late. No worries. Brandon Phillip, I always see you filling up the chat or the comments on YouTube, so I appreciate that. And just my 2 cents hanging out here. Listen, I'm having a great time, and I really appreciate everybody filling up that chat. It's always appreciated. We have fun with these shows as we break down this entire card. So Scott saying stay away, learn my lesson with Belbizia. Yeah, that was low fight IQ, just kind of lunging in there. Trent, I get what you're saying here. It's tough. And Kyle Kelly hanging out from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. You get your hometown guy, your adopted hometown guy, and Tanner Boser fighting again tonight. Oh boy, does he ever fight quite a bit. So yeah, if you look at this, David saying Kaheya still in the UFC. Yes, she is. But again, if you look at it, I mean, she had that major eye surgery before her second to last fight, or before her last fight, I want to say. And you look at it, she was on a 2-fight losing streak. Holly Holm, well, that's forgivable. She's a forever title challenger, and she lost to Irene Aldana, who those two are going to fight. It's a title eliminator. I know Aldana out because of COVID. But for Betch Kaheya to get the win over Sijara Eubanks, that's a huge win. I know Eubanks kind of started to fade after the second round, but you know, it should be a decent one there. Q Dizzle, you're an absolute dork, so come on, man. Don't be a dingus. He's my brother. And Artie Van Housen, people sleeping on Penny. I mean, Penny Kanzad's a favorite, so I wouldn't necessarily say that that Penny Kanzad is... I don't think anybody's sleeping on her. So we'll leave that for where it is. Trovelin saying Kaheya is a good underdog pick, actually. I think she is. I'm going to stick with the pick of Penny Kanzad here, but I could see how Betch Kaheya is a good underdog pick. Again, you just have to worry about the fact that Kaheya is really getting up there in age. It hasn't totally affected her so far. But Kanzad, if she can keep that volume up and establish some distance and keep Kaheya back, she should be able to get the win. So I'm really looking forward to it. Kanzad should be able to get the win. Q Dizzle, sorry, bro, I didn't know. You knew. Our last names are Allen. What are you doing? We look the same. So your next fight, Tanner the Bulldozer Boser stepping in on short notice, taking on Rafael Pessoa. It's one of those fights that's kind of sketchy because, again, short notice for Boser. He fought in Vegas. He took 6 total shots against Felipe Lins, and he mashed in that fight. He looked amazing in that one. Wabash, and then the back fist, and then Herb Dean, and the great pictures. So it was a lot of fun there to watch that performance. Tanner Boser is one of those guys that, that stuck it out with, multiple different organizations, whether it was with ACB, whether it was with M1 Global, or Unified in Alberta. He just continued rolling, picking up the big wins, and smashing opponents. And even if he lost, it was against really good competition. David Ash saying Boser looks elite on the feet. This is the thing. So Tanner Boser had that amazing win in his last fight, and you can say what you want about it. I mean, maybe not the biggest knockout artist. That's the thing. Seth saying Boser by decision for show. Kyle Kelly saying love Boser by points. Trevor going with the knockout. And Matthew Knapp hitting up the super chat. Appreciate you saying hope guest gets the win tonight and looks good. So PG Vision, is this the guy that trains with Fury? No, that's Aspinall, and we'll get to him. Boser being a lock, I do think so. Now, the trouble is it's heavyweight and anything could happen. Rafael Pessoa throws these really long looping shots and he can definitely hit his opponents. I mean, if you look at the fight that he had against Jeff Hughes, that's kind of an example of it. Sex God saying recency bias. Well, we have a show here called Recency Bias that comes out on Sundays. But yeah, if you look at it, I mean, it should be an easy enough win for Tanner Boser because the thing that he does incredibly well, he throws a lot of volume. He throws good combinations, whether it's in close. He can establish that distance by bridging the gap, and he throws that nice low kick that he just continues to wear him down. Trent bossing him. Boser going to wear him down with the leg kicks. Exactly. I think that the Boser should be able to get an easy win here. But again, it's heavyweight. Rafael Pessoa throws those looping shots, but typically it's technique over looping heavy shots. He should be able to get the win as our chat goes crazy, and I'm going to try my best to follow up with it. So, your next fight, this is the fight that I considered the fight of the night. Movsar Evloev taking on Mike Grundy. You've got wrestling in two different capacities. Freestyle wrestling with Grundy. You've got Greco-Roman wrestling with Evloev. It's a great fight. I want to know what everybody's thinking in the chat. Let me know who you're going with in this fight. Because again, if you look at it, it's one of those ones that could go either way. If I'm looking on the Instagrams, like I said, 53-47, you can't see that, but that's what it says. So check it out. That's at Fight Night Picks that we've got it there. Again, I really do think that Evloev should be able to get the win. I know Mike Grundy, great with the level changes, really heavy and thick striking. Mukhtar saying he looks like a hitman. Sure, maybe he does. I don't know what English hitmen look like. But it should be a good one. Trent going with Grundy here. Artie's going with Grundy. Nathan J going with Grundy. Movsar Evloev, you can't sleep on him. He's one of those guys that's cross-trained at so many different gyms that I really do think that he has a great shot. And that's not to say that he's going to win, but he's a guy that spent time at Tiger Muay Thai. He's a guy that spent time at ATT. Jonathan saying, just an awesome fight. I'm going with the Russian, though. David saying, I've read Grundy has good takedown defense. He does, and he has good forward pressure as well. As Trovelin says, I'm not afraid to give prediction or analysis, but you're staying away from this one. I respect that one as well. Trevor going with Evloev by decision. Alex Gagnon saying knockdown. Like, if you look at this, for all the parts and parcels, as everybody does seem to be on Grundy, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to go with Evloev. He's still the favorite. The odds have closed somewhat. So if we look at them right now, Mike Grundy went from a plus 230 open, then around plus 200. Now he's plus 157. So it is what it is. Seth Wenzel saying, why is everybody on Grundy? I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Movsar Evloev. This is one of those fights that I do think it would be really close. And again, if you woke up tomorrow and Mike Grundy won and you would pick Movsar Evloev, it is what it is. I'm sure people are gonna trash me in the comments either way. But yeah, it should be a good fight. I'm really looking forward to this one. The scramble should be insane. The stand-up should be good. A lot of people have kind of claimed that Movsar Evloev isn't as dynamic on the feet as maybe should be or he could be or you would expect him to be. As GTMMA says, scrambled eggs, boys, Evloev by split. Listen, it's so hard. Like, people, if you're going to say that a fight's going to be a split, that's a tough one. It really is. Alex L saying Russia's better than the USA, but we have a Russian and an Englishman fighting here. So we're going to continue on as Henry also fixes that. So Jake Collier taking on Tom Aspinall. This is one where Tom Aspinall, he's trained with the likes of Tyson Fury to get ready for his amateur boxing career. He took some time off from MMA to get into boxing, had success there. You look at it in MMA over his last number of fights. He's finishing guys, and one of them, yeah, it was a TKO due to leg injury. The other one, where he used that crisp boxing. The thing is, Tom Aspinall's background is in wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and he teaches them at Team Cowbon, and I pronounced that properly again. But this should be a great fight. Trent saying Jake Collier looked rough at weigh-ins. I mean, listen, I've got another, Ringside Beer is a sponsor, but like, he just had that t-shirt on, just had the weigh-in with the t-shirt on. It's not a great look. I know, he took a lot of time away. He had the USADA suspension. He's moved up 3 weight classes. He said for his next fight, he's going to fight at 205 pounds. This is tough, though. I mean, Tom Aspinall, he's still young in the game. And that's the thing. I mean, if Tom Aspinall goes up against one of your better heavyweights, like, let's pick somebody, and I know people might not agree with me, but like a Marcin Tybura, somebody in and around there. It's going to be a tough fight for Tom Aspinall, somebody that really puts the pressure on him. But in this fight, I see this as an easy win for Aspinall. The last time I checked, he was about a 3-1. Yeah, he's what? An average. He opened as -170. He sat around -215 for a long time. Today, he's -315 favorite. So I get that. I'm going with Aspinall. I think this is his fight to lose. And I don't think Jake Collier is going to be able to get it. So it'll be interesting to see, but going to go with Aspinall in this one. We move on to Nicholas Dalby and Jesse Ronson. And the way that Matt and I set this fight up, I'd like to know what people are thinking, because over on the Instagrams, it wasn't even close. 96% going with Nicholas Dalby, 4% going with Jesse Ronson. It's tough. So let's look at this for what it's worth. Nicholas Dalby, great on the feet, switches stances. One of the best fights I've ever seen with Ross Houston in Cage Warriors, where there was too much blood in the cage that they had to end the fight due to the blood. It was insane. Nicholas Dalby does a lot of things very well. He can take the fight to the ground. He can keep it standing, throw together combinations, throws nice kicks. He's a really well-rounded type of guy, and he's a lot of fun to watch. And since he left the UFC, I know he had that split decision loss to... I was trying to think because I'm reading the comments, but he had that loss to Carlo Pedersoli by split decision. That was an awesome fight. It was really close. And since then, on the winning train, so to speak, for Jesse Ronson, a guy that spent time with PFL, a good old Canadian, he went with a negative record, that he had in the UFC, wasn't able to pick up a win. But the trouble is, he's typically lightweight, and that's one of those things where you have to kind of worry. I know standing next to each other, they looked about the same size, but I really don't see Jesse Ronson getting the win here. Hopefully I'm not slagging him too much or giving Dalby too much of the advantage, but it's tough. I mean, looking through the comments here, let's see. Sammy's saying Dalby, just my 2 cents Dalby. JTMMA, Collier's delighted Craig used that picture. That's the only one I could get at the start of the week, and I don't normally switch these pictures once I put them in to go with the squares that you can find on the gram. JNK, who should you drop 2K on? Nobody. That's a bad idea. Ben Asplin saying all my fellow Swedes will bring it home tonight. And Tommaso Mark, thanks for joining us. Haven't seen you in a bit. Excited to see Nathaniel Wood back. So I'm going to go with Nicholas Dalby in this fight. And if I'm not mistaken, he's also a pretty big favorite as well, sitting around the average -272 on best fight odds. So it's one of those ones that isn't overly close. I'm surprised Dalby isn't more of a favorite. Jesse Ronson, for what it's worth, does a lot of things well. And that loss to a really tough out against, I wanted to say Mateus Nicolau, but that's not who I'm actually thinking. Natan Schultz, the 2-time millionaire with the PFL. It was on a day's notice, and Jesse Ronson didn't want to take that fight. So you can't sweat the small stuff like that. And I've got Dalby to win that fight. So let's move forward into a weird one. Everybody asked, and Ben Asplin saying Jai Herbert's pretty good dog. Seth going with the underdog pick of Carla Esparza. Jai Herbert's my pick in this fight. Wasn't to start off the week. I picked Francisco Trinaldo. Again, he's such a good, crafty vet that picks up wins and just keeps going and makes the weight, and it's never an issue. And do you see the problem that I'm coming at here? Francisco Trinaldo didn't make weight. I heard people saying that he couldn't produce any more sweat. That's not good, especially at the age of 41, and I get it. Like, if you look at his recent record, it's great. Even in some of his fights where he might have lost, like the Alexander Hernandez fight, I thought that he won that fight. But moving forward into this one, as JTMMA says, Black Country Banger, Artie is saying Herbert. Let's see. Like I said earlier on, Ben's saying Herbert's pretty good underdog. The thing is, Jai Herbert was an underdog yesterday. He was an underdog this morning. Jai Herbert's not an underdog anymore. These odds are about at par. As Lucas says, you have Herbert by decision. Henry's saying Herbert. JNK saying JNK 1022 saying LMAO. Yeah, like don't do anything ridiculous. But yeah, if I look at it right now, the average -110 for Jai Herbert. Francisco Trinaldo -112. I'm going with Jai Herbert, and here's the reason. I kind of threw a little bit of misdirection, so while you were looking over here, I was actually over here. And we talked about Jai Herbert being a good guy, or a good, jiu-jitsu practitioner. And he really is. He really is. But the trouble is, his hands are great. Jai Herbert, if you look at it, the combinations he can throw, he stands at a nice stance in orthodox where he can throw that right straight down the middle, hit his opponents, throws together good combinations, throws together some nice kicks. The trouble that I have with Jai Herbert, and if this was 100% Francisco Trinaldo, Owen Young joining in. Wow. Appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, we've known each other for quite some time now as internet friends. But Jai Herbert, he gets taken down a lot. And if you look at his first fight for the title, he got taken down. But he just kept popping up. And that's the thing. If Trinaldo's going to get the win, you think maybe he pushes a pace, maybe he tries to take him down, maybe he follows that plan. But he's such a durable old fella that he should be able to get the win. I just don't think with all the extenuating factors that Trinaldo wins this fight. And I'm switching my pick to Jai Herbert. So if you go back and watch those videos again, I might get trashed because people didn't watch question mark kicks, which I definitely think that you should. And I see Trovelin saying Trinaldo is such a neutralizing guy. That's the only doubt. I get it. Nicholas is saying I'm Brazilian and Jai's got this one. Again, I think exactly what you're thinking. Jai Herbert's a great striker. When he's on the ground, he can do a lot of neat stuff. And Wyatt Kenny, bringing in the comparison with the J.J. Wilson-Claxton fight, that was a really weird one where you had two judges scoring it totally opposite, 30-27 for Claxton and 130-27 for J.J. Wilson. So J&K saying Jai Herbert has B... What are you talking about? BJJ. Jonathan saying you can switch your pick, homie, don't trip. You know I can. So I'm going to go with Jai Herbert. That was Matt's pick originally. I just think, again, this whole week has not gone well for Francisco Trinaldo, and missing weight like that definitely doesn't help you. So now we're going to move on to the most contentious fight that's in this one. And listen, you're saying Herbert has 80% of his win by knockout. Trinaldo has 32 fights and never lost by KO. He's over 41 at lightweight. That's not good. If you're missing weight by 4 pounds, that's not good. And MMA math never works, and we bring that up in some of our videos because I've seen some people who throw it down in the comments and they'll say, you know, like I saw somebody say, Mike Grundy has 100% takedown defense over his career. He has 100% takedown defense in his one fight in the UFC. That's where UFC stats comes in. And even then, you have to discount stats and this and that for some of the fights that guys will have. And we try our best to talk about that in our prediction videos. So, most contentious fight on this card. Are there any Rhys McKee stands here? I think Rhys McKee has a good opportunity to come into the UFC and get a win. I really do. He does a lot of things incredibly well. He'll get into a stand-up war. He can definitely submit his opponents. He's dangerous all over the canvas, and I think 170 is definitely the perfect home for him, because if you saw these two guys standing next to each other where Chimaev wrapped his arms around him, tried to pick him up, and McKee was quick to push him off, it's one of those ones where Rhys McKee was a surprise at being as tall as he was, because Khamzat Chimaev listed at 6'2". McKee looked like he was the bigger fighter there. And that's kind of surprising because, again, the difference is in height, but the fact that Khamzat Chimaev just recently fought at 185 pounds against John Phillips. And some people didn't like my analogies, but John Phillips is one of those guys that throws so hard and he puts so much power into his punches that he threw. Chimaev switched levels and took him down really easily. Had that 10-7 round, which wasn't much of a surprise. But Khamzat Chimaev definitely does look like that guy at 170 pounds. Somebody threw it out, and I wish I could remember and give credit where credit's due. But somebody threw it out and said Khamzat Chimaev's next fight, if he wins this one, should be Warlley Alves. And I think that's a great one. If it could happen, Warlley Alves, the guy that had that crazy fight against Colby Covington and went the way it did. But this is one of those ones that you stay away from. And the reason being is because Khamzat Chimaev is such a big favorite. As an average on best fight odds, he opened as a minus 600. He's a minus 1,253 is what they have. So it's crazy that way. I mean, you don't touch it. I see some people here. Ben Asplin saying, why parlay McKee when you can bet it goes over? Again, everybody talking about sprinkling McKee, but it doesn't make sense to me. I get it if it makes sense to you. For me, it doesn't. JT MMA saying Phillips is way tougher than this kid. I don't think so. I mean, Rhys McKee is a legit guy. And I'm really looking forward to his time in the UFC. Some people also said, well, Rhys McKee in his last few fights didn't fight guys with great records. But Hacken Foss was a good fight. Perry Goodwin is that litmus test. with Cage Warriors to see if you're really good or if you're not as good. And McKee got the win there and looked great. So I've got Khamzat Chimaev to win this fight. I do. But I do think that there's a good opportunity for McKee in the UFC. He's a guy that you definitely shouldn't sleep on. And there's always fights like this. I mean, the UFC doesn't do it as much. Bellator does, if you watch Bellator 242 last night, where they match up two prospects together. This one, of course, on short notice for both guys. McKee, as recently as this week or earlier on in the week, Cage Warriors was saying, hey, he's coming back. He's going to have a really good fight, and we're looking forward to his return with Cage Warriors. And now all of a sudden, here we are. So interesting stuff there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. It should be a good one, going with Khamzat Chimaev, as I see some people picking some different things. Brazier took down McKee in 14 seconds. Brazier's a good fighter, though. It's been a pretty decent ride with Bellator for Terry Brazier, but yeah, going with Khamzat Chimaev. This is the fight that I had a really hard time trying to pick. Alex Cowboy Oliveira taking on Peter Sabata. And I know, and I could go back down through it, but there were a lot of people going with Peter Sabata to win. And I'm looking at it on the Instagrams at Fight Night Picks. 59% with Alex Oliveira, 41% with Peter Sabata. And I get it. As Ashdeep asked, any thoughts on some really confident picks? I'll get to that right at the end. I'll go back down through if you can hang out for a bit. But in this one, I want to know what people are thinking. Are you going with Cowboy Oliveira to get the win? Or are you going with Peter Sabata? The trouble with Peter Sabata is he hasn't been like the most active fighter. He's a guy that trains with somebody that we saw earlier on this card. A really good guy, Nicholas Stutz, with good stand-up. But if I look down through the comments, David's saying Cowboy time. Ben is saying Sabata, the only thing keeping you away from him is the time off. Max going with Sabata. I see a lot of people in the comments section going with Sabata. If he's able to take the fight to the ground, I would certainly favor Sabata in this one. But Martial Arts Fan and Vokua and everybody, well, the two of you, I guess, saying fade and staying away from this one, I would do the same thing. I don't feel the most confident in picking Cowboy Oliveira to win this fight because he is a picture of inconsistency. And I think a lot of people are probably in the Tapology picks and elsewhere are just going with Alex Oliveira based off of name value. But Peter Sabata is a decent opponent. I mean, I know that crazy fight against Kyle Noak back at UFC 193 was kind of wild. Sabata has allegedly been living with a world-class boxing coach for the last 2 years. I get it. I don't like this fight whatsoever. If you look over at the odds, Alex Oliveira, the favorite at a minus 153 clip. The odds are kind of closing in on Sabota. So a lot of people have been kind of watching that one. But yeah, I'm going to stick with Alex Oliveira in this one. But it's tough. And Wyatt's saying, I just read Oliveira admitted to slacking since his last fight, coming into this one with a different mindset. J&K saying Sabata has great jiu-jitsu, and Trovelin going with Cowboy. Nicholas going with Sabata, going against the Brazilian. And Grunge saying that Sabata, because Oliveira will put himself into a bad position. And I agree. I mean, it's a weird one, and it's too close, and I wouldn't get all that close. Alex saying Sabata won with Dalby, and Alex Oliveira lost to Dalby. And you got to watch how much you put into this, and I'll talk about some things like that as we move forward. I'm going to go with Alex Oliveira, but it should be a really good one. So our next fight, Paul Craig gets Gadzhimurad and Antigulov. Another one that I would try and get away from because Paul Craig is, again, just like Alex Oliveira, picture of inconsistency. His striking's quite sloppy, but his groundwork's really good, whereas Gadzhimurad and Antigulov get knocked out in his last two fights. So how much stock can you put into that? And his 2 wins in the UFC are great, but they're against guys that aren't in the UFC anymore. So it's a tough one to try and predict. Matt and I had a hard time when we were putting together our prediction videos on this one because I'd like to know what you're thinking. I mean, if we look at it over on the Instagrams, 64% are going with Paul Craig to get the win, 36% going with Antigulov. It's tough. It's really tough. People going with the over. I think there's probably going to end up being a finish in this one. I don't think Paul Craig's going to fall in love with his hands. But Bubba Gumption bringing up a really good point. Antigulov pressures, and that's the thing. I think Antigulov pressures, gets the fight up against the cage, lands some elbows, gets into a guillotine, does something to get the win. And then the trouble is, as Ashdeep is saying, as multiple people I'm sure will say, they both gas. They really do. I mean, Antigulov, who's going to gas first? We talked about that in the prediction video. I keep seeing people picking Paul Craig, and I think, there's a method of victory that way. Sustainable man in the chat. But if I look at the odds, Paul Craig's the favorite, minus 135, opened at plus 105. Gadzhimurad Antigulov opened minus 125. Now he's at a plus 111. That's, again, an average on best fight odds. But I'm going to stick with the underdog pick in Gadzhimurad Antigulov, where that line's moved quite a bit, and a lot of people are thinking Paul Craig, and I see it in the chat. JTMMA saying Craig has the better cardio. Listen, I think I have pretty good cardio as I continue on the show because I don't take breaks. I just keep going and going and going. But that's for you to decide. And thanks for the boost of confidence there. As I joke and I kid, which apparently I shouldn't do sometimes. All right, your next fight, Carla Esparza, Marina Rodriguez. This is another one where the underdog has a lot of upside in terms of a pick. And Matt and I both picked Carla Esparza. And I wanted to bring in something neat for this week. And I think that you guys could certainly help out with some of these videos moving forward. So if you can find us, like I said, on Instagram, it's at Fight Night Picks. As Raw, AMZ, picks for Dalby. Yeah, we're picking Dalby. You missed it. But moving forward, I'd take some video submissions on these. And we actually have one for this week in one of the fans, PG Vision, saying more jokes, please. I only have so many basketball references. Matt's got the better ones. Grival's taking Esparza by decision. Logan Fitzgerald saying, just joined in. What's your underdog of the night? Thanks for joining in right now. So like I said, send us a video for next week's fights or for one of these fights on the Instagrams and let us know who you're picking. We can feature it in one of these videos. So I'm going to go to one of Anthony's picks from the Instagrams. And yeah, let's hear it from Anthony.
Hey guys, Anthony here. Gonna give you guys my underdog pick for the upcoming fight night. I believe Carla Esparza is gonna push the pace with her takedown ability and attempts in order to beat Marina Rodriguez and give her her first loss of her career. Carla Esparza has fought and won against notable fighters like Michelle Watterson and Rose Namajunas. I believe that Carla Esparza truly gets the win in this fight.
Really appreciate it from Anthony. That's great stuff. So like I said, you can find us on Instagram at Fight Night Picks. Let us know some of your picks if you want to have them featured in the videos. We'll do our best. We get a lot of DMs. But I'm looking forward to this one. And Ashdeep saying, Anthony, savage, buddy of yours. Well, that's great. And I really appreciate the submission. So you can find us there. Maybe let us know some of your underdog picks, some of your wacky picks, even some of your locks. And we'll try our best to get them into question mark kicks. So really appreciate that from Anthony. I see a lot of people flip-flopping. There's some for Esparza, there's some for Rodriguez. We both picked Esparza going into this one. I'm looking at it on the Instagram, 45% with Esparza, 55% Rodriguez. So let's talk about this. Let's really break it down. Carla Esparza, if she's going to win, if you want to go with an oversimplification, you're going to say that Esparza is going to pressure, take the fight to the ground, hold her down, get the win. This is the trouble. If I look at Marina Rodriguez, and Ben Elsom brings up a good point. Marina is big and she's rangy. Ben's saying Esparza's not very active on the ground, but she could be, and she can. There's a lot of things that she does really well. Just my 2 cents. I like what you're saying right there. I really do think that this is a fight for Marina Rodriguez that's going to make it difficult on her. I mean, if you look at the way that she's done it, and a really good point that Esparza knows how to steal decisions, but if you look at it, I really think that Esparza is going to win this one. I mean, Calvillo is a really good wrestler. That was a draw for Rodriguez. Maybe he scored it for her, maybe he didn't. She had that decision against Randa Marcos. It could have gone either way. But Carla Esparza and Randa Marcos fight somewhat similar. And if Carla Esparza is able to change levels when she's on the feet and take it down, she should be able to get the win. Now, already brings up a good fight. Esparza is going to take some knees. If Marina Rodriguez can get it in the clinch, or if Esparza is going for a takedown, Rodriguez can shoot those knees up. Grunge saying goes like Montel Jackson, Brett Johns. I saw that one in the comment section earlier this week. And UFC Betting Experience saying Carla doesn't go for many takedowns lately. But I mean, if you look at her last 5 fights, she lost to Gadelha in a fight that, again, we thought that she won. She lost to Tatiana Suarez, who looks like she could be a potential title challenger or even champion in this division when she's healthy. Jandaroba Grasso and Michelle Watterson, it is what it is. And no, please saying Marcos said she had a hard time fighting Rodriguez. Well, yeah, I mean, I think Marina Rodriguez is a really good fighter. But yeah, I'm going to go with the underdog in this one and Carla Esparza. I know Matt agreed with me earlier on in the week. I think she's going to get the win. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if Marina Rodriguez wins this one. She's a favorite. It's a close fight. She's a good rangy fighter. She throws good volume and she can keep it going at a nice pace as the fight goes on. So it's one that I'd stay away from, but I do like Esparza to win this one. And now we get into the last 3 fights that are ever so wonky. You get 240 some odd pound Alexander Gustafsson taking on the bag of milk that is now in 2020 Fabricio Werdum, who did not look good whatsoever. And I see JTMMA saying Esparza did take Jandarova's undefeated record, but yeah. The trouble, and I guess you can draw a parallel there, so I apologize. But Fabricio Werdum against Alexei Oleinik, maybe thought that he won. I didn't think that he won. I didn't think that he won whatsoever. If you look at it, it's such a tough one to try and go with Fabricio Werdum because you could say, well, all he has to do, drag the fight down to the ground and get the submission. I could see that happening. Anthony actually sent me a video in the DMs of Werdum doing that on the UFC video game, but I just don't see that in this one. I think that Gustafsson's going to win this fight. I mean, it's tough to try and draw parallels and going back to the Glover Teixeira fight where he threw that wild combination and ended it. It was a video game combination, but I just don't see Werdum getting it done here. I could see him getting tired. I mean, I don't think he's the type of guy that at, 42 years old is going to outlast Alexander Gustafsson. He's not great with his takedowns. He's not great with his forward pressure in his wrestling, and I just think that Gustafsson should be able to get a fairly good win here. Trovelin saying that Gus looked great on the scale. I think so too, and it seems like pretty much everybody going with Alexander Gustafsson. If you look over at the odds, he's over a 3-1 favorite at this point. He's a minus 329, kind of coming back up a bit for the former champion Werdum. But the trouble is too, and I don't like it when fighters say this one, I know Ben saying Gustafsson told Swedish press that he's going to stay on the outside and pick him apart. The trouble is, Werdum said that this is his last fight in the UFC. Probably not going to fight with them again. JTMMA pointing to that as well. It's tough, though. It's really tough to go with Werdum. So I'm going to stick with Gustafsson. In our co-main event, a weird fight. And I know Matt and I talked about it in the prediction videos, the fact that Shogun Rua was like a childhood idol. We were big Shogun fans, big Lyoto Machida fans, big Brazilian MMA fans. But it's tough to go with Minotauro in this one. Antonio Rogerio, Nogueira, legends. But the weird fight was the Nogueira fight against Sam Alvey, because I remember when we were talking about that fight before it happened, the fact that it was Sam Alvey's fight to lose, and he did. But yeah, I mean, he had that win. Then he lost to Ryan Spann. That was one that was at home. Shogun shows those flashes of brilliance, and I think that's why he should be able to get the win. OJ saying, I feel this is going to be a sad fight. Shogun's going to destroy Nogueira. David Ash, Senior Citizens Championship. It's tough to go with either from Ben. I agree. Vokula saying this is a trilogy. It is. It's not like one of those tough rubber match type of fights because Shogun won the first 2 by decision. I think Shogun's going to win this one. Ben's saying it's one of the 3 fights you wouldn't bet. It's one of those ones that is tough. Shogun's about a 2-1 favorite. I'm going to go with him here. Alan saying elite fight between these two. Can you imagine? Like, you're 13 fights into a card, you're all jazzed up for a great main event, and then this fight happens in your co-main event. It's a weird one. Nogueira said it's his retirement fight. Maybe goes out there and looks like a world beater. I just don't see it. So yeah, Emilian saying, do you think there's a real possibility Craig stopping Antigulov? I mean, I picked Antigulov to win. Is there a possibility? Sure there is. I would think it'd be more around 2 and 3 than it would be 1. Especially, like, look at that Ankalaev fight. But yeah, it's tough. Giovanni saying how many minutes or hours before the event starts. You get about 17 minutes before it starts. Somebody just bringing up Yuri Prohaska for fun. He's a good fighter. Yeah. Alex Gagnon asking for a lock of the night. I'm not going to give you one because I've got burned by that lately. So it's going to take a while. GTMMA saying I picked Slogun. Adriel saying it's risky. And OJ saying, hasn't it been like 5 years since Nogueira fought? No, it had been a long time. And then he decided to become active and fight against Sam Alvey and Ryan Spann. And if I can go in and look at it really quick, that was Sam Alvey was September 2018, and then he fought in May of 2019. So he's been active. And for Shogun Rua, He's what, 4-1-1 in his last 6 fights? That's insane. So yeah, it's kind of crazy there, the fact that that's the way that it's going. But yeah, I'm going to go with Shogun Hu in this one. So David's saying Darren Till, please. You want to see the Till pick? Let's get into our main event of the night. We have Robert the Reaper Whittaker. I threw up Bobby Knuckles. Somebody said, well, that's not Bobby Knuckles. That's not his nickname. It's a fan nickname. Hey, I like to have fun. So let's have a little bit of fun. And I've had some people, kind of go back and forth on this one. Darren Till, Matt talked about it, where he does that and he kind of just ends up in front of you. He will keep his hands a little low. Didn't do it so much in the Gastelum fight because Gastelum can kind of bridge the gap and get in close. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, Darren Till, great Muay Thai. He can really throw a lot of nice things. He can really switch a lot of things up quite well. And he's one of those guys that, I really think middleweight was the home. Maybe even later on in his career, you see him at light heavyweight. But in this one against Robert Whittaker, you're taking on the former champion. He had the great fights against Yoel Romero. In the fight against Israel Adesanya, it's funny because if you looked at it, Robert Whittaker, the commentary team said he's got to bridge the gap. He's got to get in close with Adesanya. He's got to throw together combinations. He's got to throw power punches and end the fight sooner than later. Well, what did Robert Whittaker do? I know he wasn't listening to the commentary team, but that's exactly what he did. He kind of continued to close the gaps. He was throwing nice hooks. He was throwing nice shots. And he just kept getting clipped every time because every time he'd go in, he'd drop his head to the right and he'd get hit. And he'd just keep dropping his head. And David's saying that, it's one of those fights he hopes it goes to a draw. It's tough because a lot of people don't want to see these guys lose. They're both, to an extent, fan favorites. I know the UFC might not have seen Robert Whittaker as their most marketable champ or this and that, but I really think he's a great fighter. And for Darren Till as well, I mean, he's still one of those blue chip type of prospects. And I know he's got some losses. The Masvidal loss was tough. The fight against Tyron Woodley was tough. But it is what it is, and you're going to lose to some of those top flight guys. So, like OJ's is saying, it's one of those fights where you don't want to see either one to lose. Samuel's saying the same thing. But as you move on, it's tough. And Trovelin bringing up a good point. Till just knows how to control the range. It's one of those ones where the Whittaker fight, so I was talking about it, he kept, getting in close. And in that last little bit, it was one of those ones where Adesanya hit him once, and then he turns, and then he hit him with another hook and dropped him, and then that was the beginning of the end of the fight. The good point here in Voku is saying, can you bring up Whittaker's leg kicks and how he gets caught? He will get caught, and if you looked at it, Adesanya was chewing up that lead leg where Whittaker had to, close the gap even more. And it's a really difficult fight to try and analyze because both these guys are so high level. Whittaker changes levels and he throws some really nice shots, and Darren Till bridges that gap, throws nice and close. He can throw from range. I just don't see Darren Till doing a lot of these things where, and I see it up there, where he's not going to follow like a Wonderboy Thompson type of approach. And I saw that in the comments. Some people saying, well, could he do that? But that was 10 fights ago for Whittaker and 6 years ago. So you can't put too much stock into a fight like that. Now, if I look over on Instagram and try and bring up the picks, let's see where we're at. 59% going with Whittaker, 41% going with Till. I'm going with Robert Whittaker in this fight. Matt picked Robert Whittaker to win. And if we look over at the odds really quick, they're close and I get it. Minus 140 for Whittaker. At one point, he was a minus 115. He continues to become more of a favorite, and there's more of a disparity in the odds. Till opened as a plus 115. He's around a plus 120 right now. Let's see. I mean, Tony Pacheco saying, I don't think Whittaker will be able to take Till down. He very well could. Trent going 3 for 3 with the English buddies, all from Team Cowban. I get it. And Ben saying, I think Till's going to try and do a lot of work from the clinch. I think he very well could. But yeah, I'm going to stick with Robert Whittaker. And an interesting thing that I saw on Reddit, because our MMA is a great place to pull stuff from, was the fact that Robert Whittaker and champs in general, when they're going into their next fight, they're 88 and 88. So it was an interesting one to see there. As Hunter Mai says, what about Tanner Boser? We picked Boser to win in that one. Alex saying if Whittaker's heart and health are well, he's a far better fighter. I do think so. I mean, Henry's saying Till seems to have more of the momentum, but he just won one fight against Kelvin Gastelum, who didn't look very good against Jack Hermanson. So I don't know if I'd say he has a lot of momentum. just because he lost 2 tough fights before that. He fought a really smart fight against Kelvin Gastelum, and you can't take that away from him. And Trovelin saying Whittaker's concerning because he loaded up so much. But he loaded up because he needed to against Israel Adesanya. So if Darren Till can, and it's a good point, if Darren Till can move away, can really kind of parry those shots, he has a very good shot at winning. It's one of those ones that I probably would stay away from, but fairly confident that Whittaker should be able to get the win. I mean, if you look at the way, and you can't put a lot of stock into it because it was a couple years ago, but if you look at the way that Tyron Woodley won this fight against Darren Till getting close, gets his hands down. Again, Muay Thai guy, you'd expect a really nice high stance, but he was keeping them a little bit lower. Boom, overhand right. Robert Whittaker, who's to say that he can't do that? But still, yeah, I'm going to go with Whittaker in this one. So, let's see. Fight Night picks, Usman or Chimaev. I think Kamaru Usman has a chance of being the greatest welterweight of all time. I think he could surpass GSP. He has a lot of fights to go. He has to beat a lot of those top guys. But it's way too early to say that Chimaev's going to beat Kamaru Usman. So if the fight happened tomorrow, Usman all day. So Ben saying, how do I think Whittaker wins? I think he just continues to apply a lot of pressure. I think he's going to land shots through the guard of Darren Till, and that's how he's going to win the fight. Cameron saying, who wins, Matt or Craig? Listen, Matt doesn't want that smoke. I got to keep the Fight Night Picks trophy going. I used my verteball to work out my shoulder because it's out of line when I broke my arm, and I decided to throw a baseball with a broken forearm, and that really screwed me. But yeah, now I need the verteball, and you guys should check it out. Verteball.com. Use promo code FNP for 10% off. But either way, let's run through this entire card. Let's make our final picks and predictions. Let me know what you're thinking about this one, and we'll get into it as we finish this one up. I've got Wood to beat Castaneda. It should be a great fight. I've got Ameev to beat Stolze, but I think Stolze is one of the livest underdogs, and I think the line's ridiculous. I've got Pannie Kanzad to beat Kaheya. I wouldn't want to get close to that one. Let's see. Rafi's asking what are my best picks, so let's rip through it. Let me know what you're thinking. So again, I've got Wood, I've got Ameev, I've got Kanzad. Not overly sure about the Kanzad Kaheya one, so take that for what it's worth. Again, we like to be honest here, and you have to be honest when you're picking some of these ones. I've got Boser to beat Pessoa overwhelmingly. Danny D saying underdog pick. I'll get to it, Danny D. Appreciate the super chat. So going with Boser. Going with Evelvov to beat Grundy, but again, that's a really interesting one, and a lot of people going with Mike Grundy. Tom Aspinall to beat Jake Collier. If you want a lock of the night, Tom Aspinall to beat Jake Collier. I know it's tough, and we talked about it in our video. I would stay away from it because you never know what you're going to get of a guy that's been away for so long and didn't look very good at the weigh-ins. I've got Dalby to beat Ronson. I've got Herbert to beat Trinaldo, so maybe that's an underdog pick for you. Again, I picked Trinaldo in our pick'em videos, but after this week, going with Herbert. Fish Please saying get the verteball. Going with Chimaev to beat McKee. I don't think that's a surprise. Going with Oliveira to beat Sabota. That's another one of those ones that's iffy. Gonna go with Antigulov to beat Paul Craig. There's another underdog. Gonna also go with Carla Esparza, another underdog to beat Marina Rodriguez. Gonna go with Gustafsson to beat Werdum. Going with Hua to beat Nogueira. And then rounding out the card, going with Whittaker to get the win over Darren Till. So Alex Gagnon saying you took Esparza, a dog too. If I'm not mistaken, I can rip through it. The underdogs that I picked were... let's see. Herbert, if he's an underdog where you're at. Sabota's a close one. I wouldn't go with him. Antigulov's another one. And Esparza. So I've got 3 underdogs there out of all of it. So I'm really looking forward to it. Let me know maybe some of your favorite picks. In terms of fight of the night, Evelvov versus Grundy's my pick. It should be a really good card. There's 15 fights. You can't really go wrong. We got 7 minutes before the card starts. So I really appreciate everybody for tuning in. We got about 413 to 412 in attendance right now. Everybody hitting up the chat, helping out the channel. I really appreciate everybody. Again, we got Vertiball hanging out with us, so make sure you check those guys out. We've also got Ringside Beer with a lot of neat stuff. The tap handles that I have. I got the shirt that I pulled, the stunt of Jake Collier wearing the shirt on the weigh-ins. I think it's a great one. Alex Gagnon saying I think there's going to be 4 to 6 dogs tonight, but not sure. On average, 60% of the favorites winning, 40% underdogs every now and again. So I think it should be a great one. Wyatt tuning in. Thanks, everybody. Hopefully you enjoy the card tonight. And yeah, I want to follow up with PG Vision saying you're new to the UFC. I don't appreciate that. Easy now. And Fight Blast saying, do I think Conor McGregor will return? Of course he will. He's the biggest star in the sport. He's going to return. Who is he going to fight? I have no idea. Enjoy the card. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And as we always say with Fight Night picks, let's get into it.
It's time!
For 15 minutes of non-stop MMA, tackling the biggest news in the sport. Head into the chat and let us know how you feel. Live from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada.